Hello, everyone. Welcome, dissidents, one and all, to an afternoon edition of the Do Dissidents podcast at a special Tuesday, Thanksgiving week time slot. Keaton Weiss here, of course, with Russell Dobular.
Hello.
And today, what we're going to do is we are going to take some audience questions in between our bits here. So if you have anything that you would like to ask us, we figure we'd open up the floor to you guys, as we usually do anyway. But today, we chose segments that'll be a little bit shorter, so we have a little bit more time to answer questions if you guys have any. So obviously, post them in the chat if you got them. This is Thanksgiving week. We want to begin, actually, by plugging a guest appearance that we're going to be making on tonight's edition of Declaring Independence, which is a new show started by Jose Vega and Kynan Thistlethwaite. Those are, of course, the AOC protesters who went viral protesting her continued yay votes for Ukraine war funding. We were fortunate enough to interview them on our show a few weeks back. And they decided to invite us onto their show, which they just started. So we were excited and happy and grateful to accept that invitation. Pardon me. That'll be on tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern on the Declaring Independence YouTube channel. I will tweet out a link to that. I already have tweeted out a link to that.
Special guest AOC.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah, we'll see if AOC shows up. Exactly. We'll see if she can make it.
I don't think she has the guts.
And take our questions. Yeah, we have some questions for her, indeed.
Quite a few.
Before we start, we just want to give a little bit of news that just came across the wire just in time for the holidays. Thanksgiving is right around the corner, and student debtors can take some solace in the fact that while student debt relief is being held up in the courts, the Biden administration has extended the moratorium on payments for another 6 months. So it's now pushed back to June 30th of 2023. Eventually, they got to just do what Russell, came up with and what a lot of people have come up with, which is just push it back to June of 2178. Push it back for another 155 years or so.
Actually,
to save up the money.
My suggestion is you call it the Star Trek executive order, and you set the date of the resumption of student loan payments to the date that Captain Kirk takes over the Enterprise in the 23rd century.
23rd century. All right. So that would be 22 something. Do you remember that date offhand?
Is anyone here that much of a dork that you know when Captain Kirk took over the Enterprise?
Got to check on that.
We're on the wrong channel. I'm sure over at like Critical Drinker, Nerdrotic.
Yeah, exactly.
You'd have like 80 people would have rang in with an answer to that.
They would know. All right, we have our first question of the show. So like I said, guys, this is we're going to do some segments. We actually have a few different segments that we're going to do. But we did want to leave extra time here to do a little Q&A for Thanksgiving to show how thankful we are to all you guys. So what we're going to do is we're going to take questions sort of in between segments. So if you guys have a question on any topic that we haven't covered or that we have covered and you'd like some further clarification, most of our shows sort of function as talkbacks, but we made extra time this time. So our first question is a very highbrow question here.
By the way, it's 2265.
2265. All right, excellent. So there you go. Now we have specifics. Is bending a knee different than bending over? I think it is. I'm not a Game of Thrones fan, but there's a reason we put that in the headline, because Hakeem Jeffries apparently is a Game of Thrones fan. But Russell, you are. So bending a knee is different from bending over, right? I mean, I guess
not if you're doing it right.
Right.
All right. Yes, that is different. We want to be careful with those jokes though, because last time we did a Hakeem Jeffries bit, I did a riff about him soliciting hedge funds and booty shorts on a corner. And I had somebody who was very upset about that, thought it was a racial thing, to which anybody who's watched the show, I have actually intimated that Joe Biden couldn't speak in a clip because he had Saudi pubes stuck in the back of his throat. I'm just not hesitant to go to those kinds of places. But we got to be really careful today with those kinds of references because we're going to be doing a Hakeem Jeffries bit.
Yeah.
We can do when we're talking about Hunter Biden. We can.
Right. Well, luckily, we're going to be talking about both. A couple other questions and comments here. She, Nebraska, and Glenn Greenwald's husband's health issues seem to have worsened. I saw that today. He canceled the test run of his upcoming Rumble show tonight. If anyone has influence with a higher power, I'm sure it would be welcome. Yes, we are pulling for David to come through. He's been in the ICU for months. If you notice, Greenwald took almost a month off from everything. No tweeting, no nothing. His husband had this pretty bad intestinal infection, as I understand it, and he's needed all kinds of blood transfusions and things like that. And he's struggling. He's fighting. But yeah, it does seem that, according to a tweet that Glenn sent out earlier, it does seem that perhaps his health has taken a turn. And Greenwald is starting a show called System Update, which he has a podcast with the same title, but that's going to be a nightly Rumble news show. That's going to be awesome, but obviously family first, so best wishes to David Miranda. We're all pulling for him. All right, so we're going to we already have some questions here, but we'll get to them after this first mini segment here. So Elon Musk obviously created a poll of users and asked, should I reinstate Donald Trump, yes or no? Vox Populi, Vox Dei, meaning the voice of the people is the voice of God. He left it up to the users. And the yays ended up winning 51.8, as I believe, to 48.2. So about 52-48. That's about a 4-point spread, which according to public pseudo-intellectual orator, novelist, thinker, speaker, writer, whatever the hell this guy is, Scott Galloway, the margin was tight enough where he suspected perhaps there was some interference.
From who, I wonder?
From who, I wonder?
Who would be so foul?
So he lays out his case. Musk was so concerned about the huge number of bots on Twitter that he wanted to back out of the deal. Russia operated bot farms to sway our presidential elections in favor of Trump, per Mueller investigation. I love how he has to give a citation there. How much of the 4% margin is bots and trolls versus Vox Populi? I don't have proof of Russian interference in the poll. Yeah, shocking. However, it would be hard to disprove it.
You know, it's hard to disprove that the solar system are not actually molecules in a bottle of soda.
Yeah, right. It's hard to disprove.
How do you disprove that?
Yeah, no. Yeah, they say you can't prove a negative, which is almost the same, not quite logically the same, but in the same logical realm as, you know, you can't disprove a negative, right? What I am saying is this seems like a fickle way to reverse a permanent ban, especially after Musk said a moderation council would decide. Also, moderation policy hasn't changed. I love how you get that dig in, that Russiagate dig in. It just shows, you know, how you are allowed to spread certain kinds of bullshit if it's the right kind of bullshit, if it is bullshit that is sanctioned by the establishment.
How is that not? How is that not fake news?
Right.
How is that not fake news? Right. He has no proof. He says, "I have no proof of this."
Yeah. He says, "I have no proof." He says, well, the Russians had bots spreading, you know, pro-Trump propaganda in 2016. Therefore, they may be doing the same thing now. Maybe it was a Russian military operation. Maybe all the soldiers in Ukraine got a text alert to their phone at the same time. Stop what you're doing. Vladimir says Elon Musk has polled. Must vote in poll.
That is poll. Vote yes, and you get 2 rations of bread.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Yeah, it was actually worse than that. I've seen clips on where else fucking MSNBC where these fucking psychos are just going on about this. Well, Elon Musk almost didn't buy the company because there was such a problem with bots. So how many of these are bots that were voting to put Trump? Come on, man. I think the Russians have their hands full with World War III. I don't think this is really what they're worried about, whether Trump comes back on fucking Twitter or not. But yeah, Matt Taibbi, I mean, this is kind of a related story. How YouTube gave Matt Orfalea, his kind of resident video maker, a strike for doing a video showing how many Democrats have denied the validity of the 2016 election. And he put it right next to Republicans denying the validity of the 2020 election. And he got a strike. The video got taken down. He didn't take anything out of context. Nothing was changed. There was no tricky editing. Nothing. He simply showed what these Democrats said. And
Yeah, no, there's
he got
certain
a strike for
things
it.
that you are just not allowed to talk about, which is why any questions that come in that are related to those kinds of issues must come with $100 super chat minimum in order for us to read
Minimum.
it, if you're going to do
Minimum.
that. Yeah, exactly.
Mr. Weiss, are you out there?
Yeah, right. I don't know if he's watching this afternoon. Let's go to another question here. Mansa West, why is it greedy for me to wanting to keep what I have earned, but it isn't greedy for the government wanting to take more of what I have earned?
The eternal question. I think it was Socrates who first asked that one.
I don't think it's necessarily greedy for, I mean, I don't know what your class background is. It depends on how much you have, right? Depends if you don't have money to spare. Like, this is one of the reasons why right-wing populism has appealed to working class people, because they've lost faith in the system's ability to actually make their tax dollars worth paying. And so they figure, leave me alone. I don't want to pay any of it, because all you're going to do is waste it. I'm not going to get anything back. And so let me keep what's mine. So no, I don't think it's greedy for a truck driver, making 60 grand a year, working 70 hours a week, to want to hang on very tightly to that money. Now, I don't blame them for that. I don't think it's greedy for that. I might not agree with the political theory behind it, but I don't think it's greedy. If you make $6 million a year and you're worried about a SALT tax being taken away so that you can't deduct your state and local taxes from your federal income taxes, yeah, I think that's a greedy bastard. Yeah. So I think it very much depends.
This is what I feel like. This is a question that usually I'm very dubious about what right and left mean at this point. So take it with a grain of salt when I say this is something that tends to come from the right, this kind of a perspective. But what they never seem to really investigate, my problem isn't the government taxing. My problem is what they're spending it on.
Right.
And what I think a lot of the right will, especially thought leaders on the right, will focus people's attention on is the welfare state, right? These people living off of handouts and all this shit. They never focus them on the military. They never focus them on the way we subsidize corporations. So what I'm skeptical about in terms of paying my taxes, I wouldn't really have a problem with taxes if we had universal health care, if we had free public colleges and universities, if our money were going into the public good. And I'm not a pacifist. I'm not saying go full Costa Rica. Our circumstances really don't allow for that. And it just, nobody's going to invade Costa Rica. They can get away with that. I'm not saying no military, but our military is ridiculous. It's a boondoggle. It's a way of stuffing money into the pockets of defense contractors. You cannot tell me that with 1/10 the military, we would not still have enough deterrent power for invasion. Jesus, we have a nuclear arsenal. Who's going to invade? Who's going to invade the United States?
Right, of course.
So at that point, what is this military for? It is to enrich contractors. That's what this is for. It's to stuff your tax money into the pockets of the military industrial complex. So I don't understand. I would respect it. And once in a while, you will see a true blue libertarian make that argument. That I respect, when they don't believe in the welfare state and they don't believe in the military industrial complex and they're furious about corporate subsidies. All of it. If you're going to be mad about some of it, I want to hear you talk about all of it. Don't just tell me about this guy down the road who lives on welfare.
All right, good answer. All right, let's move on. Do you have
hang
something
on.
else?
We have a question here before it gets lost because it's kind of interesting. Well,
Oh, okay. Just a question for you guys related to this. Is there a single Dem that I could be truly excited for in a real way? Well, I mean, my answer to that is no.
I concur.
Yeah.
It was an interesting question with a boring answer.
Yeah, right, exactly. An interesting question with a boring answer. I don't know really what else to tell you about that. I mean, I would honestly say no. And there were certain Democrats who I thought, could make interesting appeals into different constituencies that could help just reshape the party base, which then in turn might help reshape the party leadership. But as we've seen, the lesson of I'm talking about guys like Richard Ojeda or even John Fetterman before we learned the real deal behind John Fetterman, right? Like those kinds of guys. So I may have given you an answer like that a couple years ago. But as time has gone on, it's become very apparent.
Yeah, there was who was that? That's that steel worker guy from out in what was that, Michigan?
Well, Ojeda's from West Virginia.
Not Ojeda. There was
I don't know who
another
you're talking
guy. There was like a progressive guy, and they were trying to smear him because he had like a drunk driving thing.
I don't know.
You know who I'm talking about? He was like a
No.
steel worker. Or he was a union guy.
The guy
Can someone help me on this? It was like Michigan. I think he was Michigan. Anyway, go on.
Yeah. Anyway, like a couple years ago, I would have given you an answer like that. But as we've seen in the past couple years, the party leadership is just so unresponsive to anything underneath it that it really doesn't matter. So I would say no.
That's what we have seen. I mean, that's related to the segment we're going to do on Hakeem Jeffries. Gene's down there in Costa Rica. See, our income tax goes to education, healthcare, and the environment mostly. Electricity, water, telephone, and internet is all public utility owned by the people. See, now, if we lived in a country like that and you had an issue with paying your taxes, I'd say you're a greedy bastard. In this country, if you feel like you're getting ripped off, you're right. You are.
Right, of course. Yeah, absolutely. All right, before we get on to the Hakeem Jeffries bit, let's talk a little bit about Hunter Biden. Because now that the Republicans are the incoming majority party, they have already started chirping about the Hunter Biden investigations that are forthcoming. We just had CBS News admits, which I thought was laughable. They've admitted this now almost 2 years later, that the Hunter Biden laptop is probably real, which everybody knew that already. I don't know why that's new.
Well, that's why they had to rejoin Twitter within 24 hours because nobody watches their station.
Right, yeah,
it's the only way they could get the word out.
They quit Twitter, and then we've concluded this is probably real. Everybody knew it was real the second it came out. And then Twitter.
Oh, not everybody. I saw shitlibs proudly.
Well, yeah, but
proudly touting their resistance to Russian propaganda.
Yeah,
proudly touting how they saw through this and weren't going to be fooled.
Right. I mean, everybody outside of that very insular bubble knew that it was real the whole time. It just made sense that it was real the whole time. And now the Republicans are launching some investigations into this. So, Russell, what should we do? Should we go to the Fox News article citing all these tweets first, or should we play a little Karine Jean-Pierre press conference footage to set this up? Maybe we should play the video first.
You can never go wrong with a little Karine Jean-Pierre.
All right, there we go. All right, so here's Biden's press secretary being asked about this, and we'll hear what she has to say.
Top Republican on the House Oversight Committee, Congressman Comer, has said that he's investigating the president's involvement in his son Hunter's foreign business dealings. Looking for your reaction to that, and then on the merits of the allegations, can you address whether the president was involved in any of his son Hunter or his brother's foreign business dealings?
So look, there's a little bit of interesting, kind of on-brand thinking here because. Congressional Republicans ran saying that they were going to fight inflation. They said they were going to make that a priority. They were very clear about that these past several months. And instead, what they're doing is they're focusing, they're making their top priority. They get the majority, and their top priority is actually not focusing on the American families, but focusing on the president's family. They're not coming up with solutions on how we're going to lower costs for American families. They're not coming up with solutions on how we're dealing with issues that matter the most to American families. Look.
Wow, that answer was so good, I forgot the question. Can we play that one more time just for a few seconds so I remember the question?
Can you address whether the president was involved in any of his son, Hunter, or his brother's foreign business?
That's why she didn't
So,
answer the question.
right.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah,
So
yeah.
it was. I thought it was just the artfulness of the spin there, but no, that's why. That's why she didn't answer the question there.
She baffled you with bullshit, Keaton.
Yeah, she baffled me. She won. She got me. She got me.
She got
Got to
you.
admit, when you're good, you're good.
Okay, I have not checked in with her in quite a while. I will say she has gotten much better at saying nothing when she gets questions like that. She's much quicker than she was when she started. When she started, she was kind of horrifically bad at this. But yeah, now she's gotten used to just winging it. Yeah, no, but they said about inflation and they should be fighting inflation. What are they doing for your family? What have you done for people's families? You guys have been in charge for a couple of years now. What have you done? She has no answer to that. I was just watching today. It was pretty interesting on CNBC. Somebody was pointing out, and it's amazing that nobody's really been making this argument. As the Fed keeps raising these interest rates, and I know technically the Fed chairman is independent. In reality, we know that's not completely true. We know they fucking put pressure on these guys when they're causing a lot of problems. The U.S. has never been in as much debt as it is right now. You know, as we raise interest rates, that's also raising interest on the national debt. Like you could wind up with a total credit collapse because of this. So these are the policies coming out of this administration. This Republican Congress is not even taken over yet. I am not saying that these guys are going to do dick about inflation, and I'm not suggesting that. I'm just saying the Biden administration is hardly in a position to be pointing a finger at the Republicans for not solving a problem that has been theirs to solve exclusively in terms of control of government for the last 2 years.
Well, you know, if I may, I mean, she frazzled me with her bullshit. She frazzled you with her bullshit too, because the question here is, was Joe Biden involved with his son's business deal?
You're right.
Now,
look, we got redirected, and we are, if nothing else, professionals.
Yeah, right, exactly. She redirected us.
She redirected
That's the
us.
question. Now, I would like to ask this question of the audience. By the way, this is a Q&A show, so in between segments, we're going to be taking audience questions. For those of you who filed in late, submit questions in the chat, and we will do our best to get to everyone's. When we're talking about Hunter Biden's business dealings and whether or not his father was involved in those business dealings, we're talking about his business dealings in, at risk of blowing people's ears out, I'm going to take this because I want to make sure everybody hears this very loudly, so I'm going to take the wind guard off. Ukraine. I mean, it is laughable. It is laughable that this is not worth investigating. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? The guy was sitting on an energy board that he had no business on except for the fact that his father was vice president. Once again, that energy board was not a Scottish energy board, not a Finnish energy board, not an Icelandic energy board, not a Sudanese energy board or an Ecuadorian, a Ukrainian energy board.
Well, what does that have to... Why is there something going on in Ukraine or something?
His salary was cut in half when his father was no longer vice president, which right there is admittedly circumstantial, but it's evidence of a kind that Uncle Joe, or in this case, Daddy Joe, was doing a little skimming, right? Now, what is it? 6 years later, Daddy Joe is the president, funneling tens of billions of dollars to Ukraine.
With no oversight.
With no oversight. Exactly. In a war that they are involved in that has security implications now for every human being on Earth. So how is this not worth investigating?
Yeah, we're sending billions to the most corrupt country in Europe before this invasion. What could go wrong? And then it was CBS, right, that actually tried to do a report on this, and then it got censored and pulled down.
Yeah, well, CBS.
That was CBS, right?
When are you talking about? You're talking about years back, right?
No. A few months ago, CBS did a report about where the money is going, and showing that we don't know.
Maybe
it got pulled. It got pulled. Yeah, no, it got censored. I think it aired once and got pulled down. Our listeners will definitely know about this. So in the chat, fill that in. But yes, I'm pretty sure that was CBS.
Yeah. So, I mean, the idea that, like, this is just some boondoggle, just some, like, right-wing, fear-mongering caravan.
Well, that's how they're
bullshit.
going to spin it.
Yeah,
That's how they're going to spin
But
it.
it's absurd. I mean, it's just absolutely absurd.
Well, this is what I said when we were talking about doing this segment. I just can't deal with another 2 years of but her emails bullshit. Yes, it was legitimate to ask questions about tens of thousands of emails that were under subpoena disappearing from Hillary Clinton's server. That was a legitimate question. Now, if you want to say the Republicans are hypocrites because they wouldn't care if it's a Republican, now at least you're being honest. It's a duh, but okay, at least that's honest. But to pretend there's no there, and they're doing exactly the same thing again. They're gearing up as soon as this investigation starts to create a wall around the Biden administration of mockery at anyone who would dare to suggest that there's something fishy about the president's cokehead son having done all this business in Ukraine, where we are now funneling billions of dollars. You got to be a kook.
This is the crazy thing, though.
Something weird there.
This is what makes this so especially insane, though, is that they're not just saying that it's crazy to think there's something fishy about Hunter Biden's dealings in Ukraine. They're saying it's crazy to act as if it is in the public interest to know what his dealings were in Ukraine, as if there's not a war going on in Ukraine that could go nuclear, that we've sent now 12 years worth of tuition-free community college to that country to fight their war. Like, we are just funneling resources out the door in the form of Ukrainian weapons, Ukrainian aid, and it is not in the public interest to know whether or not the first family has a conflict of interest in fucking Ukraine? Like, that's crazy? You're a kook for thinking about that? Even if there's nothing fishy about it. Let's just say there is nothing fishy about it, right? Let's just say it was totally on the up and up. It would still, in that case, present a conflict of interest in the minds of the average person that you have this relationship with Ukraine, even if it was legit, even if it was totally above board. It's still kind of fucking weird that it exists at the same time now the president is sending all this money to their in the form of, like, military aid, right?
Well,
it's still in the public interest to know this, whether there's whether there's corruption or not.
Well, when you look at the Bidens, when you look at Joe, when you look at Hunter, when you look at what's the brother James Biden, knowing as much political history, urban political history as I do, they're like classic old school Tammany Hall corrupt Irish political family.
Right.
Oh yeah, well you just leave the bag under the table and you walk out, Michael.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
I mean, they're a modern day version of that.
Yeah, just extraordinary.
Biden's gonna have to get his Nixon ready.
Yeah,
People
right.
have to know if their president is a crook.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I am not a crook.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, just the idea that this is not worth investigating is just absolute nonsense. And especially with an answer like that doesn't inspire much confidence that the answer is no, he was not involved. Right? I mean, really doesn't.
She's like, well, I'm not going to jail for these motherfuckers.
Yeah, I mean, this guy here says 10 for the big guy. Yeah, that's a quote in some email. We got 10 for the big guy. I don't know if that implies 10% for the big guy, but it could have been even more than that. Because like I said, his salary was halved once Joe Biden was no longer president. That doesn't mean Joe was getting all that half. It doesn't mean he was in for 50%, but certainly wouldn't surprise me. Sashimi Seductions. By the way, folks, you are welcome to, in the spirit of Thanksgiving, show us a little thanks by attaching a Super Chat donation to your question. Thank you very much for the $5, and thank you very much for your question. Do you think the left can be united
That's
again?
£5, man. That's is that still worth more?
£5.
Might be worth less at this point. I don't know.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll have to cash out quickly.
Yeah.
Do you think the left can be united again like under Bernie, or was forced to vote a permanent split for this generation? Need a totally new spark from elsewhere. Look, the forced to vote thing was certainly a wedge, but once again, this is what I caution the left about this all the time. The left has a mistake of being too online and assuming that everybody else is online as well. The forced to vote thing, in the big scheme of things, was a very, very small rift in consumers of online independent left media, which you guys are all that, and we are creators in this realm. So we love this little community of ours. I'm not trying to knock it in any way, but to think that we represent even half, right? Much less a majority or the entirety of what passes for the left in this country, I would caution against that. Now, even that aside, the forced to vote thing aside, I still think it's a good question. Can it be united again like under Bernie? Well, look, so far, the only real good thing to come out of the Sanders movement have been some of the labor actions, like the not so much even the Amazon, but the Starbucks union drives are a sort of incarnation of the Bernie movement. A lot of those organizers came out of volunteering for the Sanders campaign. So in that sense, there could be some unity behind labor power. Will it ever coalesce around a presidential candidate in that way again? Not for a very long time. Not for a very long time. And this goes back to the question that we got earlier from, I believe it was James who asked, is there any Democrat worth getting excited about? Like, it's going to be a very long time before there is a major party candidate running in a major party presidential primary that just sort of crystallizes things for millions of people such that they unite under one banner.
I don't think it'll be possible within a major party. I think that can only happen with like a third party or an independent. I think at this point,
you're at least a generation away from that, really, at this point.
Right. I think the major parties are so broken and discredited because, look, so many of us are Bernie veterans. Would you ever do that again? Would you ever?
Yeah, no, of course.
I would never
get
spend
a year volunteering so that Barack Obama could undo all of it with a phone call. I mean, what are you gonna? I mean,
that's it. Nobody's gonna bother, and that's a long-term consequence of the way they handled those primaries that they still haven't really thought about.
Yeah, I mean, or maybe they did think about it. Maybe they wanted to just, box those people out. I mean, that could have been
maybe.
I mean, that's part of why the normies are winning now. That's part of why centrism has.
It's true. It is true because we walked away.
Right, because when enough people walk away, that means the people who are left are the people who buy into the system in that way and who buy into the idea that it's worth it to donate and volunteer and knock on doors. And, they sort of select their own participants in that way. That's one way that you can manipulate a game is by choosing who participates and who doesn't.
Right. Right.
All right. Do we mix any other questions here? Let me see. Why can't we just tell people they'll get health care for free? Like, no, not true, but like you basically would. What? Sorry, why can't we just tell people they'll get health care for free? Like, no, not true, but like you basically would. Oh, you mean like in terms of like increased taxes, where it's not technically free because you're paying into the system, but it's free at the point of service? Well, like I said, I mean, that's an argument that, wins over a lot of right-wing people, especially like the small business owners. I told the story about my uncle a couple of times. He owns a large small business. And he was very concerned that the ACA was going to ruin his business because he couldn't afford to pay health insurance. And so he asked, why don't we just do health care the way they do it in Europe, where it's included with your tax dollars so that the employers don't have to worry about this shit? So that's a fairly conservative guy inadvertently making a case for socialized medicine.
Right. All right. This one, because I keep bothering him about it, you have to ask Keaton that.
What's that?
When will you get new intro music?
We're working on it. We have one of our listeners is actually working on that.
Yeah, he's on here. He's on here today.
He is. Oh, he is on here today.
Yeah.
Oh, is that's the guy whose name I can't pronounce, right?
Yeah, it's like Kofevi or something.
Right. Yeah. No, it's like GD.
No, I definitely saw him on here.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're working on it. And Keaton's brother is apparently he went to Juilliard, but he doesn't.
My brother went to Juilliard. No, he went to Bard. He did go to Bard for music though. He got a student scholarship to Bard. Do Keaton and Russ believe the Democratic Party is salvageable, or do you guys bet on a third party to fix the country? No, the Democrat Party is not salvageable, and no, I don't bet on a third party to fix the country. In case you haven't realized, this is not a very optimistic program that we run here. So, yeah, I would say no to both of those things.
We're like, I would define our politics as joyful nihilism.
Right.
You know, most people don't think you can have those two things together, but you can. And we're living proof. We're like,
right.
It's like we're post Zen enlightenment. You know, we got hit with the shoe, and now we're just like, right, we're just transcending it all.
Yeah. All right. My dad is on the chat here, and he has a question. You recognize the provocation that prompted Russia's special military operation, but describe it as a war crime. So how should Russia have reacted? Interesting question.
Apparently, your dad's never seen Footloose. There's nothing that can't be settled with a good dance contest.
Exactly. I mean, look, it was a provocation. The reason it was a provocation is because the world is as it is. Like, we would think of Mexico joining a hostile military pact as a provocation. But, you know, and we would wipe Mexico off the map if they did something like that. There's no doubt about that. Doesn't mean we would be right to do it. In a right and just world, Mexico is a sovereign country. They ought to be able to join whatever military alliance they want without being invaded and having, you know, civilians targeted. And
yeah. So, if Mexico signed a pact with Russia, a defense pact with Russia or China, we would be in Mexico. There'd be no Mexico. We'd be fucking in Mexico City by that night.
Right, but what I'm saying is, in a sane and just world, their decision to do that should not be taken as a provocation worthy of a, you know, violent response. Right. In an ideal world, a sovereign country has the right to do what it wants without being bullied by the bigger fish right next door. But that's not the world we live in. Right. And so that's been sort of my answer to all of this. And people say that, you know, well, that's whataboutism. No, it has nothing to do with whataboutism. Whataboutism, by the way, is a made-up word that the libs came up with when they get called out on their bullshit, right? They say you're a whataboutist.
Well, that's what they always do. Like, they are such fucking lemmings. It seems like a lot of their political project is aimed at building a wall around themselves with phrases that they can all use to check in on each other.
Well, that's what the Russiagate thing is too.
It's like this. This is why horses whinny. Actually, it's echolocation. They're trying to check in with each other.
Right.
Checking in. That's what libs do when they say "whataboutism." They're checking for each other.
Well, that's what that Scott Galloway tweet was. Hey, Russia may have fixed the poll, right? Right. How's that sound to everybody? Are we going to run with that? Right? Did think we could run with that? No. All right. Maybe we'll back off. That's what he's doing, right? Putting out certain feelings.
I want to address this one. All right, so it's Matt says, like, our resident Randian. Socialized healthcare is such a good idea. Canada is killing off patients to take some of the burden off the system. Okay, so listen, Matt. So, you know, we're not, and this is probably why you listen to us. We're not your usual kind of leftist. I agree with you in one sense. I think that is a uniquely leftist dystopian nightmare, what they're doing there with this euthanasia system in Canada. And I actually do want us to do a segment on it. I mentioned
Johnstone wrote a great article about this.
Yes, she did.
Yeah,
I mentioned it like a month ago, and some people were skeptical of it because this news had just broken. They were kind of like, really? What are you talking about? Now this is becoming more widely known.
Yeah, but they're actually floating. Go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to.
But Mansa, we're one of 3 countries in the fucking world that doesn't have socialized healthcare. They're not creating some kind of dystopian Soylent Green euthanasia system to take burden off of healthcare. This is a weird thing that is Canada specific. Now, if you had a rash of this wherever you have socialized healthcare, you'd have an argument, but that's just dishonest to take this one country that has taken a very weird fucking turn and say, oh, well, see, that's what happened. We've had socialized healthcare for almost 100 years in most of the Western world, and one country went off the rails. See, I told you so. Come on.
Also, they are floating this as a solution to poverty. They're actually, which I agree, that is a dystopian thing. But one
It's
of the things
very,
that you
it's
have
very,
to,
that is a very left dystopia.
right, but it's floated as a solution to poverty. Poverty, which would be
Well, there-
alleviated if you had a government that was not run by a neoliberal tool like Justin Trudeau. See, here's the thing that people have to understand. Socialized medicine is a given in every other first world country on earth. It's a given. So even when a right-wing leader takes over, healthcare is off limits,
Right,
out of bounds.
right,
You can't
right,
touch that, right?
right.
Maloney just won in Italy. She's not talking about taking people's healthcare away. She's a right-wing, whack job. She's not talking about touching
Like
that,
in most
right?
of the world,
Boris
they
Johnson
wouldn't
Johnson
suggest that
undermined the
any
NHS in
more
certain
than
ways, but
anyone would
nobody
say-
would ever float
Right.
abolishing it.
Just like
Margaret
no
Thatcher,
Republican saying let's abolish public schools.
exactly. Margaret Thatcher privatized just about every industry she could when she became PM. She did not touch the NHS. It's a given. So you can still have neoliberalism. You can still have right-wing governments implementing right-wing policies in countries with socialized medicine. And the problems that come with that are still going to be present. You're still going to have poverty. You're still going to have homelessness. You're still going to have desperation. But you have healthcare. That's a given. The way the fire department is a given here.
Right. Exactly.
All right. So I hope that answers that. All right. Let's see. Do we have any other questions, or can we move on to our Hakeem Jeffries segment? All right. Let's move on. I think we hit all of them.
Yep.
I don't see any more here. All right. Thank you guys for the questions, everybody. And by the way, I'll take a little bit of a game break while we are paused here and just give a little thank you to our patrons. A patron scroll is now going across the bottom of the screen. You can support the show by going to patreon.com/do dissidents. Why don't you buy a gift membership for your uncle and give it to him at Thanksgiving this weekend? A gift Patreon membership, makes it for a nice virtual stocking stuffer. But we are happy to give that shout out to our patrons. The more donations we get,
Be
the more
the
membership.
be the first kid on your block to get a Do Dissidents Patreon membership.
Yeah, right. Exactly. All righty. So let's just let this Patreon scroll here finish up. And then we will go on to, our third segment. All right, so we have two segments. We're in at 45 minutes. All right, we're doing a nice economical show here, which is good because we have another show that we have to do in a couple hours after we wrap. So got to keep this one on time because my kids have this condition where they have to eat. I have food-dependent children.
That's why I don't have kids, man. That's why I don't have kids.
So you could do a double-header show with not much of a break.
Yeah, these motherfuckers, man. They fucking, you gotta fit. Yeah, 18 years of that shit.
Right.
Fucking feeding them and clothing them and comforting them and advising them. Jesus, fucking, you don't even get paid. You pay. You pay
That's
to
true.
do that.
Actually,
Unreal.
Nebraskan, they're privatizing the NHS now in the UK, Keaton. Are they private? I don't know to what extent they are doing that.
I know they're messing around with it.
They are.
in the
Well,
UK.
Johnson proposed that too.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the UK is more like us than any of the other countries over there, and I think we're seeing the results of that.
Well, they still have private doctors opening private practices, so healthcare is
Right.
still privatized in that sense, right? You still have private doctors. It's not like a doctor is a cop. Or
Well,
a fire-
most of these countries, you can get supplemental private insurance. If
No,
you
but even
want
the
it.
doctors who supply the care are private doctors. They just get paid by
the
the
National Health.
NHS
Right.
according to how many patients they have enrolled. It's actually a much better system than the way. See, they get paid to keep their patients healthy. They lose money when their patients get
Right.
sick. They don't make money when their patients get sick because doctors in the UK get paid according to how many patients are enrolled with them, which means seeing them and treating them costs them money, doesn't make them money. Here, it's the exact opposite. Here, you get paid when somebody walks in the office. That's why
Right,
you have to go for
right.
5 follow-up visits every time you get a headache, right? Oh, I want to see you in 3 months, so follow up, make sure your head's okay. Oh, come back in 6 months after that. Let's do this test to make sure. But cha-ching, 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 cha-ching.
Right.
Doesn't work that way over there, right? Anyway, all right, let's keep moving right along here. This is an interesting story. Because Hakeem Jeffries is, of course, set to succeed Nancy Pelosi as
And,
leader
and that's
of the party.
everything you need to know about the hopelessness of the Democratic Party.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Right. We're going to
Like,
answer that question right now.
all these years exposing Pelosi's corruption, and now you get somebody who, by the time he's done, I think he's going to make Nancy Pelosi look like a poster child for clean government.
Yeah.
By the time this fucking scumbag is finished.
Exactly. Careful. We don't want to get called names. We have to be polite to Hakeem Jeffries.
Yeah.
Right. We have to be very nice.
That's I think that's what they call the soft bigotry of low expectations.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. Exactly. Hakeem Jeffries is, of course, set to succeed Nancy Pelosi as Democratic Party leader, with not much opposition from anyone, not even the squad, not even Jamal Bowman, who not only is one of the more squad-adjacent progressives. He'd probably be a squad member if he was a woman, or maybe he is a squad. I don't know. Is the squad female only, or is he?
No, they like they usually include him.
All right, so he is a squad member then. I take that back. But anyway, Jamal Bowman says it's gangster that the top Democrats in Congress could both be from New York City. All smiles. He loves this idea. He chuckled.
I'm glad we pushed for this guy, man.
Yeah. Well, we pushed for this guy in a primary against Elliot Engel, who in the summer of 2020 said that were it not for the George Floyd protests and were it not for an election coming up, he wouldn't have to speak about racial justice issues. Made an extraordinarily tone-deaf statement about racial justice issues in New York City. It wasn't bad enough to get him on the wrong side of Hakeem Jeffries, who offered his full support to embattled Representative Engel following, quote, an inartful statements. And of course,
as did Hillary Clinton, who he defended earlier in his career.
That's right. We'll get to that in a second. But Engel was, of course, being primaried by Jamal Bowman. And so Jamal Bowman just totally cucked there by Hakeem Jeffries, and he is not alone. There is not going to be any challenge to Hakeem Jeffries for party leader. He is, of course, a member of both the Progressive Caucus and the New Democrat Caucus, right? He's triangulated himself. He paid dues to both organizations precisely for moments like this so that he would not be challenged. But let's take a look at whether or not the squad should be rolling over or bending the knee, as Hakeem himself would say.
I mean, this is a case where bending the knee and bending over are pretty much the same thing.
They are pretty much the same thing. Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. So let's look at a little bit of a timeline here. Let's just go back to the 2016 primaries, which was really the genesis of this whole online left movement, right? So we'll take a little trip back in time. Hakeem Jeffries was one of the most militant surrogates of Hillary Clinton. And in the days leading up to the New York primary, in response to questions about her ties to Wall Street and whether or not they influenced her voting record as a senator, he had this to say both about Hillary Clinton and her Wall Street ties and Bernie Sanders' ties to the National Rifle Association. Yes, you heard that right. Let's hear what he has to say.
Today, it's the substantive issues of importance to the African American community and others that will determine who prevails in the New York primary. And from my standpoint, Secretary Clinton has been right on the issues as it relates to a whole host of concerns, particularly dealing with the gun violence epidemic that continues to sweep many of the communities that I represent and many communities of color all over the country. And we know that Senator Bernie Sanders has effectively functioned as a wholly owned subsidiary of the National Rifle Association for the entirety of his career, both as mayor, a member of the House and the Senate, voting 5 times against background checks, voting twice to shield gun manufacturers from liability, voting essentially to allow... I
understand that you're against those votes. Can you really refer to him as a wholly owned subsidiary of the NRA? Do you really believe...
Like, that was too much for Chuck Todd.
Congressman.
Do you know how far you have to go in shilling before you get pushback from Chuck Todd?
I know this is DNC propaganda, but that's a little sloppy even by our standards, no?
The NRA thinks that Bernie Sanders is just one of their guys?
Well, look, I think the reality is if we're going to essentially try to associate
maple syrup, big cheddar cheese, and the NRA. Those are the three controllers.
Police Secretary Clinton with Wall Street interests when she spent her career actually fighting against Wall Street interests simply because a super PAC that she's prohibited by law from associating with has received some contributions from individuals who may work in the financial services industry, then I think we need to fairly scrutinize the fact that Bernie Sanders has consistently stood on the side of the NRA on vote after vote, including the liability one, which the NRA said is the most important vote to that organization in a generation.
All right,
All right, excellent point there. Excellent point. So that was 2016. Now, his squabbles with the left wing of the party did not end there, to put it very, very mildly. So let's take a look at a different exhibit here. This was in 2000, and I believe this was 2019, yes, when AOC's chief of staff, a guy named Saikat Chakrabarti, he called out a Democratic congresswoman named Sharice David for voting for a package that included funding for Trump's border wall. And when Saikat was asked about why you would criticize her, she is a Native American, she is, obviously of a minority group, he would say, well, there are a lot of people in minority groups who still vote to uphold racist systems, right? So he didn't even bring up this person on his own. He just gave this as an answer when he was asked about it. Just a few minutes after he let that statement out, a tweet from House Democrats, which was a Twitter handle managed by Hakeem Jeffries himself. He did not deny sending this. This is not from his personal account, but he accepts full responsibility for this tweet, which was later deleted, oddly enough, but it was preserved online. Who is this guy, and why is he explicitly singling out a Native American woman of color? Her name is Congresswoman Davids, not Sharice, which, again, Chakrabarti did not bring that name up himself. He was, asked why he had this criticism, so he didn't just come out and target her specifically. She is a phenomenal new member who flipped the red seat blue. Ready? Let's read this the right way. And a 1, and a 2, and a 1, 2, 3, 4. Keep her name out of your mouth. He's one of the real pioneers of the clap bullshit, too. Like, he really made that thing mainstream. So that's another reason.
Which is like the douchiest fucking thing you can do.
Yeah, right. He spearheaded the douchiest online trend.
Really?
Yeah,
like you could, like in the history of pictographic characters, that may be the douchiest fucking thing ever produced by a culture.
Yeah, exactly.
Like Hammurabi's code, you cannot find anything this douchey.
Exactly. That's funny. That would be a great bit to do. Hammurabi's code, the emoji section of the Hammurabi's code, the hieroglyphics on the wall.
Well, it's like we're regressing.
Yeah,
we're regressing back to pictographic language with the emojis.
As you can see in this period here, this is when the pharaoh was getting pooned. Exactly. He was getting just totally owned. All right, so that was 2019. Let's go to the primary season.
This is Anubis here clapping.
Yeah, right, exactly. Let's go to the primary season of 2020, when you had some left-wing, or, ostensibly left-wing anyway, progressive insurgents trying to primary out some of the more corporate Democrats. We already went through one example, the Engel-Bowman race, where Hakeem Jeffries sided with Engel. He also was very, very happy when Joyce Beatty fended off a primary challenge from progressive Morgan Harper in Ohio. Meltdown, not us. Congrats to Joyce Beatty on a decisive 36-point victory in Ohio's Democratic congressional primary. Up next, vote Yvette. That's Yvette Clark, also in New York City. She was being challenged from her left. And Lacey Clay in Missouri's 1st District. Lacey Clay was being primaried by Cori Bush.
Yeah.
And he endorsed Lacey Clay against Cori Bush. Now, Cori Bush, unfortunately for Hakeem Jeffries, won that primary and went on to be the next representative from Missouri's 1st District. But he was upset about that. Once again, just a perennial enemy of anything even remotely progressive. They started this fight, meaning the progressive insurgents, Justice Democrats, Our Revolution, the Bernie Sanders movement. They started this fight. We will finish it. Again, just unfiltered, unrelenting hostility to people like Jamal Bowman, right? Now let's go a year into the future to 2021. All right, so this was not, look, it's one thing to talk like this in 2016 when you have a really heated primary between Clinton and Sanders, and if Clinton is your candidate, you have to go up there on TV and say even the most ridiculous bullshit you could think of in order for her to win. Like, that's campaign season. People say sleazy things during campaign season. Okay, fine. Even if I give you a little bit of a pass for that, this is a profile that the Atlantic magazine did on him in 2021. This is after, by the way, he signed on as a co-sponsor to the Medicare for All bill, after he tried to make some superficial gestures about being quote-unquote progressive, right? Yeah. This is a profile in the Atlantic magazine. I, meaning the person who wrote this, told him about Teachout's frown and how it seemed to encapsulate the way he's viewed now. A general sense of distaste from the left that he's not one of them, though they can't quite say why. No, we can say
which
why.
Ones can't say why?
Yeah, we have no problem saying
who the fuck do you know?
You're right, exactly.
They can't say why.
We're saying why right now. We just spent the last 10 minutes saying why. We're going to spend 10 more minutes saying why. All right?
Nobody that I have lunch with at the Oak Room can say why they don't like Hakeem Jeffries.
Right, exactly. Right. None of the leftists in the lobby of the Dream Hotel can say what they have against Hakeem Jeffries. He's just
I was at the Mandarin Oriental, and nobody could articulate an argument against Hakeem Jeffries.
Exactly. Quote, this is Hakeem. There's a difference between progressive Democrats and hard left Democratic socialists. Well, no, there really isn't. I mean, the only difference is you categorize Democratic socialists as hard left, but Jamal Bowman is a DSA member. AOC is a DSA member. Rashida Tlaib is a DSA member. Like, no, they are the same group. I would argue they're not hard left at all, but anyway, that comes up once again. Quote, it's not a distinction that I'm drawing. They draw that distinction. Really?
Mr. fucking,
yeah, Mr.
Clappy Hands
Mr. Clappy
over
hands
here.
In the face. Mr. Bernie Sanders is a subsidiary of the National Rifle Association. No, they didn't draw that. No, I didn't make that point. They did. And so clearly I'm a black progressive Democrat concerned with addressing racial and social and economic injustice with the fierce urgency of now.
And I also have a calendar of the day platitude.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Right.
The
fierce urgency of now.
That was the platitude for today.
That's been my career. That's been my journey, and it will continue to be as I move forward for however long I have an opportunity to serve. Quote, there will never be a moment where I bend the knee to hard left democratic socialism. Keep in mind, this is after he signed on to the Medicare for All bill, which he knew would never pass. So he did that as a sort of empty gesture. But even then, even now, after that, he's trashing this as, pardon me, hard left democratic socialism. He goes on.
Which democratic socialism is not the hard left.
No, it's by definition.
We have hard left listeners, and we debate them sometimes in the comments. You don't know what fucking hard left is, brother. If you think democratic socialism is hard left. Democratic socialism is the rule in most of the Western world. Exactly. We are the exception. We are the freak show of the West.
Exactly. Sorry, I almost put the wrong slide up there. I almost jumped the gun. Here we go. Here is the next part of this. Jeffries likes that phrase, bend the knee. He took it from Game of Thrones. Black progressives do tend to tackle issues first and foremost with an understanding that systemic racism has been in the soil of America for over 400 years. Hard left progressives tend to view the defining problem in America as one that is anchored in class. That is not my experience as a black man in this country. Well, no, it wouldn't be your experience as a black man who is funded by securities and investment people, big real estate, big pharma, pro-Israel super PACs, right? Blue Cross Blue Shield. No, it's not surprising to me that you have not run into this class divide and felt that in as severe a way as many of the people who get duped into voting for you every 2 years do. But that is actually has a lot to do with a lot of the problems facing the nation right now. And, you know, this guy, if you notice, he has a pattern of doing what, you know, this is a corporate Democrat trick going back years and years, weaponizing his identity. When I invoke my identity as a black progressive, you cannot challenge me anymore.
You cannot.
That's his subtle way of bullying his enemies into keeping their mouths shut. We had a viewer call us out on it. Hasn't stopped us. We're obviously coming back for more. I don't care anymore. You know, fuck. I don't give a shit. I don't care what Democrats think of me, whether they're progressive Democrats or centrist. It doesn't matter. If you're a Democrat, really your opinion means nothing. So I don't really give a shit. But within the Democratic Party, this kind of bullying works. He just invokes, I'm a black progressive. Which
you know, this is why they hate.
This is why
they hate people like Nina Turner or Cory Bush or Jamal Bowman, because they can't pull their favorite trick. They manage to find ways. They find other ways to throw the ick on them. But I mean, they love somebody like Bernie that they could just call white.
Right.
It gets much more right. When they got a Jamal Bowman, it gets a lot harder. He's a young black man. How do you handle that? Right. They have to, they manage, but you know, it makes it a lot harder for them. Yeah, Jamal Bowman, if you look at his record, yeah, I mean, pretty much anything he's done that you would call good is exclusively from a perspective of race-based governance. He's done really nothing on economics. So a really good example of that is he has a huge number of housing projects in his district. So he did push for better security in the housing projects. He's pushed for reform on stop and frisk, but nothing that he's ever done has been aimed at why so many people are in housing projects, improving the economic conditions of people in housing projects, or seeing to it that maybe they don't have to live in housing projects. He hasn't done anything like that. And when you look at somebody like that, I go with the assumption very few people are comfortable seeing themselves as amoral actors.
First of all, you're talking about Hakeem Jeffries now, right? You said Jamal Bowman at the beginning.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Just wanted to correct you. Not that Jamal Bowman's probably done much better in reality.
Probably not.
His heart is probably slightly more in the right place, but you could probably say the same for him.
I meant Hakeem Jeffries. He's only done things that are racially oriented. And hey, man, you got that many people in the housing projects. You got to do something for them if you want to keep getting reelected as a Wall Street douchebag. You can't do absolutely nothing for those people. And the things he's done has been like bare minimum, very race-based kind of stuff. Try to get the cops to stop committing acts of police brutality against his constituents and put some security cameras in the projects. That's basically the extent of it. But you'll see him going, yes, and I have stood up for this community. I don't believe most people are comfortable seeing themselves as villains or as amoral actors. Most people feel a need to see themselves as heroic or on the side of the angels. And I think when you look at somebody like Hakeem Jeffries, he has to embrace this philosophy because it's the only way he can justify being such a Wall Street sellout scumbag. Because if he actually starts to look at a class-based analysis of society, he would have to change what he's doing. He would have to fight hard fights. The easiest political cause to take up as a Democrat is that kind of a cause, right? Identitarian causes. Taking up economic causes, now you're pissing off the money people. You put all the cameras in the projects you want, man. Just don't fuck with our money. You start fucking with our money, now we have a problem. Especially in New York City, which has suffered so much from gentrification and exploding real estate prices. To have somebody who takes that kind of money from real estate developers and Wall Street? What kind of representation are you getting? It's because of scumbags like this that so many people are in projects. I think it's actually in New York. I think it's 1 in 8 apartments in New York is a housing project.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
Yeah.
Not surprising when you think about it. But we put this up on our last show about him, but just to give some context to what we're talking about in case you guys missed it, the top industry donating to Hakeem Jeffries, securities and investment, meaning individuals who donate to Hakeem Jeffries, the top profession in which they work is securities and investment. Institutionally, top contributor, pro-Israel America PAC.
That's another thing. He's more Zionist than Zionist.
Yeah.
He actually said, because he grew up in Crown Heights, I know from growing up in Crown Heights, you gotta when you're in a tough neighborhood, you gotta show that you have strength.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Well, he also has, I believe he represents like Fort Greene, Clinton Hill, Bed-Stuy. So there's a lot of, Jewish people in his neighborhood. And a lot of New York politicians have to, be pro-Israel to a certain extent.
They have to bend the knee.
But this is an insane amount of money. Pro-Israel PAC, number one. NORPAC is basically another pro-Israel PAC. And American Israel Public Affairs Committee. So 3 out of his top 5 institutional backers are basically pro-Israel PACs, right?
Yeah,
he actually Comcast, who owns MSNBC, where he went on to Chuck Todd and said that Bernie Sanders was a shill for the NRA.
Yeah, he came out against Barack Obama, siding with the United Nations against Israeli settlements in the West Bank.
Oh yeah,
he actually spoke out against Obama on that. Now, for those who
Israel's a 6th borough.
Yeah. For those who don't know, Crown Heights has this very strange racial mix where part of Crown Heights is Caribbean and part of it is Hasidic Lubavitcher Jews. Right. It's a really weird little section over there. So yes, he does kind of have to bend the knee, but maybe not quite that much.
Colin Radix Carter, has anyone mentioned that when Jamal Bowman got called out by Jose Vega in September that Hakeem Jeffries was sitting next to him? No, I did not realize that, but good on you for noticing. Maybe we'll bring that up to Jose tonight. We're going to be on with Jose Vega in less than 3 hours. For those who missed this at the beginning of the show, we are going to be guesting on their show called Declaring Independence tonight at 8 p.m. That'll be on YouTube. I'm going to tweet out the link to that. Before we wrap, I'll probably put the link in the chat here so you can all tune in. But recommend that you all tune into that. That should be fun. We're doing a doubleheader today, a day-night doubleheader, just like the old baseball games. Day game.
Let's go, dude. This sentence doesn't really fit in there.
I like that. Hakeem Jeffries. That's a good one. Extra Bulla. We're coming on the Extra Bulla show next month.
That's good.
Also, December 5th. Yep. I like that nickname. Thank you for inviting us.
And we'll be in Minnesota, December 16th.
The Dissident Virtual Tour continues. The holiday season.
We'll be appearing with Louis C.K.
Right, exactly.
I like that. Great jerk matzo balls.
Jerk matzo balls, yeah, in Crown Heights.
You just gave me an idea.
What's that?
I mean, they have Japanese Mexican fusion at Chelsea Market. There'd probably be a market for that if you did a Caribbean Jewish fusion.
We have an audience, we have a decent number of listeners in New York City, as Russell as Russell knows, because one of them booked him for a tour, and then the other one of our viewers hosts a sci-fi writing workshop that you just happened to enroll in, and then you met him through there. All right, if you want good Caribbean food, because I grew up 60 miles north of New York City. Where in a town called Newburgh, where there are a lot of Jamaican people living. So there's some great Jamaican food up here, really authentic Jamaican food, which I love, I adore. And in New York City, the first couple of years I lived there, I was having trouble finding it. Even in Crown Heights, I've been to those neighborhoods, couldn't really find the stuff that really hit. Right? A good Jamaican jerk chicken is not just spicy. It warms you from head to toe.
Yeah.
It gives you that
I like a good
warm
jerk
feeling,
chicken.
Yep. Okay, so here's where you got to go. It took me years to find this place, but I finally found it. It's called B&B Restaurant Corp. My favorite place to eat in the city. It's a 24/7 cabbie sort of by the pound, sort of like buffet style.
Right.
halal Caribbean African food. 26th Street between 6th and 7th Avenue. Russell, you have to go. Get the jerk chicken on the rice and peas. It's the best jerk chicken in the city.
26th and 7th?
26 between 6th and 7th. Yes.
Yeah, I know the area well.
Gotta go. Gotta go. Fucking amazing. Fucking
All right.
incredible.
I will check it out.
Incredible food and fairly cheap by today's standards. When I went there, it was $6 a pound. So you can go there and stuff your ass for $10. You didn't need.
In fact, you know what? I got a couple hours to kill between tours tomorrow. I'll go.
Go. You know, you got to get the rice and peas, the jerk chicken, and pour that gravy over the rice, and that's it. Beautiful.
All right.
Beautiful,
All right.
beautiful.
All right.
Virtuoso's on the line. Virtuoso lives in New York City. Virtuoso, are you calling in to give a jerk chicken recommendation? What's on your mind?
Well, it's not a jerk chicken recommendation. I like jerk chicken.
Do you know that place I'm just talking about? You're in New York City.
No, I don't. But I do know a place on.
You and Russell should make a lunch date tomorrow. 26 between 6th and 7th.
26th Street between 6th and 7th?
Yep. On the north side of the street.
Okay, all right. I'm more of an oxtail guy. I like my oxtail with oxtail, rice and peas, and plantains.
Oxtail's very, very tasty. It's just annoying to eat because it's almost all bone. So you really
it's a lot of work to eat.
It's a lot of work, yeah.
Exactly. But I recommend one on 135th Street in Harlem.
Oh, that's right.
I think yes. It's right across the street from the park. It's just by the A train. They have a lot of attitude. And my theory on
I know the place you're talking about. You're talking about the place between St. Nick and Frederick Douglass.
Yes.
Yeah, it's right by where I live. That's like 3 miles from me.
My theory is this:
5-minute walk from me.
My theory is this: is like the more attitude that they give you, the most likely the food is going to be great, because a lot of people are lining up on that spot. So it must be something about their food that's like it brings people back.
Yeah.
So it's easy for them to talk shit. You know,
I get stuff over there when I know that I have time to take a nap.
Yeah.
There you go.
And the mac and cheese and everything, I just know I'm gonna get knocked out.
You're definitely gonna get the ice.
The starch content, and yeah, man, I'm just gonna be out. You know what I'll eat? I was telling people this today. All right, so I am the last generation of Jews in America that will eat tongue because we were raised on it. You know,
lamb tongue.
It's usually cow tongue. It's usually cow tongue. Do you eat that? You won't eat that, right?
No.
Yeah, you won't eat that, man. They got to give it to you when you're young enough that you don't know that it's not acceptable in this culture to eat that. Right. So yeah, man. I mean, on my birthday, it's like a religious thing. I go to Second Avenue Deli.
Making me hungry. Not anymore. Not with this cow tongue talk.
I get tongue, corned beef, and pastrami, triple decker. All right. So this is for those of you who grew up in any kind of rural area. This will be inconceivable to you. But when I was a child, I didn't know meat came from animals. And then my grandmother served the tongue whole one year. Oh my God. And I was 5. So I thought I was making a very witty observation when I said, tongue looks like a tongue. I thought that was really funny. Right. And nobody laughed. They said it is.
It is tongue.
I said, what do you no, and I thought they were just messing with the child the way adults do.
Right.
So they couldn't convince me. It took about 10 minutes of my grandfather being like, look at it.
Yeah, look at it.
It's a tongue.
It's called tongue, and it looks like a tongue.
And what do you think? You can see the taste buds on it.
Yeah, right.
So finally, my little child wheel starts spinning, and I said, "Hang on. If tongue is a tongue, does that mean chicken is a chicken?" I was horrified. That was how I found out he came from animals.
It's funny because I don't know if my kids get that either, because my kids are big time animal lovers, and they mostly don't eat meat. They'll have like chicken nuggets and stuff, but I don't know if they know it's an animal yet, and they might be upset when they find that out because they love animals.
Right. Well, we're so cut off from the sources of our food. I mean, that is only possible. That story is only possible if you're like living in an urban area. In a modern civilization, how could you not know meat comes from animals?
Exactly.
Yeah. I knew that a lot of cultures do eat tongue, but we don't. Americans don't. Gene saying Costa Ricans eat it. I know a lot of Latin cultures do. A lot of Eastern Europeans, Russians eat it.
Right. I know. Dominicans they basically serve pig intestines. Ears.
We have that too in African American culture.
Yeah. Yeah. It's very, there's a connection there in terms of serving pig. But I actually wanted to chime in
talk
on
about something other than food. Yeah, go ahead.
Jamal Bowman, man. Here's a guy that I thought was going to be a rising star for the progressive movement, but then when they basically had Hakeem Jeffries as head of the I guess the House minority, I knew that in order for them to get respect, for the squad to get respect, they had to boss them around. They're right now they're up against it because they don't have much of a voice. So they really have to get desperate here because there is no way that after AOC called Pelosi Mama Bear, are you then going to bend the knee to this guy? I don't see it happening.
This is a young guy.
No, they're going to do it. They're going to do it. They're done. They're broken.
They
got their minds right, man. They got.
I knew when it might seem like that because I knew when Jamal Bowman voted for the Iron Dome, which after that vote, I cannot look him in the face. Even if I saw him in person, man, I'd be like, damn, man, you really let me down because even though he doesn't serve my district, congressional district, I felt like he's a guy that could represent me. But after that vote, I'm like, damn, just a portion of that money that went into that missile defense system for Israel could have saved a lot of Bronx residents from their medical bills, their rent, anything. But no,
that's just the beginning of it, man. I mean,
that's just the beginning. Exactly.
Segment. You watch this segment. You watch these shows. You're a loyal fan. That's why we love you. You saw. I mean, we did this segment just now and the previous segment that we did last week. I mean, that's just the tip of the iceberg, really.
Right? Yeah, that's it. No, they're all just selling out, man. They're over there. They got to look at the other side. They got to look at the money involved, and fuck it. Who needs it? Who needs the headache? The country's going down the tubes. I'm gonna grab mine anyway.
I mean, look, they're right in the sense that there's no way they can beat him. There's no way they can wrest power from him. Look at the amount of money that this guy brings in. He brings in that money not because he's facing tough re-election. He brings in that money because the people who fund the whole party want this guy. And they're not going to be able to get the votes to beat him. So it's not that, what I fault them
but
for
you know
not
what? If
beating
they
him,
didn't,
no, but you don't have to say it's gangster, like pretend that this guy is one of us. I mean, it's fucking absurd. This is a young guy. This guy could be in leadership for the next 40 fucking years. Look at how long Nancy Pelosi lasted. You think this guy with a donor list like that is ever bringing Medicare for all to a floor vote?
Right. No.
Ever bringing tuition-free college to a floor vote? Ever bringing any meaningful housing reform to a floor vote? Never. Never. Now, it's going to be moot because I honestly don't think there's going to be a Democratic Speaker of the House for a very long time. I know they were all excited that they didn't get their asses kicked as hard as they thought they would this midterm cycle. They still lost the majority, and they lost on the generic ballot. And there's really no sign that they're going to turn things around by 2024. And from there on out, you could just have a runaway train. Like, my overall prognosis is not that the Democrats are going to get power anytime soon in a meaningful way, but assume they do. This guy is Speaker of the House. You think he's going to be an iota better than Nancy Pelosi on fucking anything? No, that's why she picked him.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Because the last thing that the House Democrats are basically outnumbered after that election, right?
You mean the House Democrats are, yes, in a macro sense, they are outnumbered. They are the minority party. Do you mean the House Democrats or the Progressive Caucus?
I mean both, really. I mean,
look, the Progressive Caucus is a sham. You join $400, they would let anybody fucking join for $400. Apparently, those are the dues. If they let Hakeem in, they would let anybody in, right? Mm-hmm. So that's a meaningless caucus. You want to get down to the real progressives in the caucus, which means at this point, the people who tweet out that they support Medicare for all, that's really the only thing that distinguishes AOC from Hakeem Jeffries, even if we really want to be fair, right? It's their messaging. No, they don't have anywhere near the numbers to beat Hakeem Jeffries. If they got close, which they won't, so this is moot, if they got close, I'm sure the Democrats could go pick off a few GOP votes for Hakeem to push him over the top. Right? That's what
Sure.
Nancy
Why
Pelosi did
wouldn't
to
they?
get the bipartisan infrastructure bill through. She protected against any progressive no votes, which weren't going to happen because most of them caved anyway. But she went out and she got a few GOP voters to sign on to push the bipartisan deal through. She got enough Republicans to cancel out any progressive defectors. They would do the exact same thing. If you look at his donor list, I don't have it on the screen, it's a lot of the same people who fund the Republican Party. Right?
Right.
Like, this is what they want. This is what
So
they
it's not about
want.
it's not about their values that gets them elected. It's who funds them that keeps them on.
Well, in his case,
this is where I'm gonna disagree a little bit with Keaton, although I don't think Keaton would really disagree with this. Yes,
bring it.
Now they cannot take out Hakeem Jeffries because they didn't do shit once they got elected. The movement that they would have been leading now doesn't exist because they turned their backs on their voters almost as soon as they got into office.
Yeah, I mean, look.
Each of them had a moment where, AOC protesting in Pelosi's office, Cori Bush going to the steps of the Capitol. And I don't know, man. It seems like once you do that, a couple of guys in dark coats wearing leather gloves come to your house, explain to you who really runs things, and then you get your mind right after that. Because it seems like they make one gesture like that, and that's it. They never try it again. They never follow up.
I'm aware
on
of the G-Men, and it's like I've come to this conclusion that the squad is basically like as a way of trying to keep out or at least pacify radical left politics in Congress.
Well, and I hate to say it. I know we got a lot of haters on the channel. There's one voice that's been screaming this since 2016, and that is Jimmy Dore.
Yeah,
Jimmy Dore has been saying this the whole fucking time that we were all being sheepdogged.
Yeah, look, I mean, to Russell's point, I still don't think they would have had the numbers to beat him. They may have had the numbers to stall the process and get more concessions out of whoever emerged as party leader.
Right.
But
they would have been if they would have been in a fight that would have been ongoing, where every single fucking time that this guy came up for a vote, he would have been challenged.
Yeah, that would have involved basically splintering
Russ, does
off
that sound
into
like
their
a vote?
own...
Does that sound like a forced to vote situation?
A little bit. Little bit.
It might have seemed a little bit easier to do that, when there was more Democrats in the House, in my opinion.
Well, and think about it. Look at all of us here, and we represent a lot of people who think like us. This would be a completely different show if they had done things like that. Every show would be about supporting these people, would be about what they're trying to do, about what we can do for them. We'd be sharing donation links. We'd be talking about rallies. We'd be organizing to go down to Washington. So this is what I'm saying. Like, the moment that we're in right now is not the moment we'd be in if these motherfuckers hadn't all sold out the second they got to Washington. It would be a completely different world politically. Not necessarily a world where you could beat Hakeem Jeffries, but a world where you'd be on the way to beating Hakeem Jeffries, instead of a world where you're looking at 40 years of him until he turns into another fucking crypt keeper like Pelosi.
Exactly. All right, we got one more segment to do. Virtuoso, if you don't mind, I'll mute you and remove you. And if you want to chime in again, feel free. Just unmute your mic and I'll turn you back on.
No problem, man. I'll just be on my way out. I have to rewatch that Bad Faith video of Breonna Joy Gray interviewing Ryan Grimm about that situation, the forced to vote thing.
Yeah, I haven't gotten a chance to watch that yet. That's on my list, though.
Yeah.
That just dropped like yesterday, right?
Thanks for having me on, guys. Thank you.
Oh, really of course. Thank you for your support, my friend. Always great to hear from you. All righty. Excellent. All right. We got one more segment that we have to do here because we do have to wrap soon because we need to rest our voice because we're back on in a couple of hours. But Ron DeSantis's Stop Woke Act ran into a legal roadblock down there in Florida. Tallahassee U.S. District Judge Mark Walker, this is from CBS News, by the way, issued a temporary injunction against the so-called Stop Woke Act in a ruling that called the legislation positively dystopian. The law prohibits teaching or business practices that contend members of one ethnic group are inherently racist and should feel guilt for past actions committed by others. It also bars the notion that a person's status as privileged or oppressed is necessarily determined by their race or gender, or that discrimination is acceptable to achieve diversity. Quote, our professors are critical to a healthy democracy, and the state of Florida's decision to choose which viewpoints are worthy of illumination and which must remain in the shadows has implications for us all, Walker wrote. If our priests of democracy are not allowed to shed light on challenging ideas, then democracy will die in darkness.
And he concluded, Wakanda forever.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, I mean, for a judge to be literally parroting the Washington Post's motto and
Jeff Bezos owned Washington Post.
Yeah, and opining that it's positively dystopian, I think that is a little bit out of bounds. Now, this is not to say I support the Stop Woke acts. I think on speech grounds, I think a college professor, if he's communicating to adults, should be allowed to say what he wants, basically. Like, I don't know if I support the state intervening to ban certain discussions in certain rooms, especially if everybody in the room is 18 or older, right?
I think it was the wrong approach. Finish, but all.
Yeah. However, you know, that judge's statement there is very loaded, right? It definitely is a political statement there. Just to call it positively dystopian, he went on to quote 1984, right? This is clearly an opinionated guy giving an opinion that is not necessarily his opinion as a judge, but an opinion
as a lib.
Right, as a lib.
He's an Obama appointee. Yeah.
Exactly. Right. And so, you know, that is sort of where I come down on that. Like I said, you know, I'm such a free speech person that I am really hesitant to empower the state to intervene in these matters in any direction, right? Unless you're talking about young kids. Now, the only other thing I will say about this is that this here, one of the ironies here, the law prohibits teaching or business practices that contend member of one ethnic group are inherently racist. Here's the part, and should feel guilt for actions committed by others. This is the woke, neoliberal, capitalist, Democratic Party project in action. Their solution to systemic racism is not to change the system, it's to make people feel bad about themselves and the role that they may have played or that their ancestors may have played or that people of the same color as them may have played.
Well, and to put more representation in Marvel films.
Well, you're right, exactly. To put the onus on individuals in this way is to suppress revolutionary politics that could actually change the system.
Right.
And so what the Republicans are objecting to here is actually something that will maintain a status quo, which is why it's kind of weird that they're this against it. They're this against it because they're playing a certain culture war game, but there's nothing about the teaching of CRT that threatens any kind of oppressive power. It doesn't. If anything, it excuses it by saying, hey, you, the 13-year-old kid in the 8th grade hallway here, you should feel really bad about this. This is on you. No, it's not on you. It's not on the individuals. It's on the individuals in a purely mathematical sense.
Citibank is our friend.
Right, right. But the people with outsized influence over the way these systems of oppression operate, whether they are class-based or race-based, right? The people in charge of that are the people who need to be overthrown. They're the people who you should be angry at, not yourself, right? Because you're white.
Right. I think this is the wrong approach because of the speech. Do I need mic compression? See, listen, man, you know, we're going to listen to you when you give us a theme song.
Right.
Where's our theme song, motherfucker?
Or $4 in a super
Or $4, yeah. we work cheap. Yeah. I'm going to be out there on the stroll with Hakeem Jeffries there.
It's Thanksgiving, folks. We can use those super chats. We got to ring the bell like a Salvation Army guy. Just ring the bell into the microphone.
City sidewalks, pretty sidewalks, trusting. Okay, I don't know how much power the legislature has over the governance of the state universities. I think where they might be on more solid ground, where you don't have those speech concerns, because that is a very the sex bot's back. That that is a very slippery slope once you open that door of allowing the state to regulate what kinds of speech professors are allowed to enact. However, we do know that these universities are unfairly enforcing speech codes on others. How much power does the legislature have to stop universities from having policies that are in the spirit of what they're describing? In other words, don't go after speech, go after policy. Speech you can't really go after. But if you're having policies that reflect these ideas, like professors getting drummed out or because they are not towing the line on ideas like this, admitting students based on their parroting of ideas like this, or conversely, not admitting students who don't agree with ideas like this. Maybe, I am not sure how much authority in the state constitution their legislature has over the governance of the university. I don't know how much power they have over admissions policy and academic policy. That's, if they have that power, that's the direction to go in. Because this speech, I mean, the judge's decision, it was annoying because he was so clearly a shit lib in the way that he wrote that opinion, and completely refused to acknowledge that there is a pressure on university campuses that this act is attempting to address, to force a conformity of thought in the other direction. He completely ignores that and pretends it doesn't exist. But legally, his ruling is probably correct in regards to the First Amendment.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think that is well said. She Nebraskan says FIRE is an organization everyone should support. A friend of mine used to work for FIRE. Yeah. They just got that Florida law about professor speech thrown out. Yeah, so FIRE was on that case. That's interesting. I did not know that. But FIRE is a good organization. Extra Bullet has a theme song idea. Here's a urinal, piss in it, then go watch Due Dissidents. All right, there we go. Nice.
A little alliteration there. We'll take it under advisement.
We'll take it under advisement. Hear that? You haven't heard anything back from me. I responded to your email. You threw some ideas out. I thought they were good ideas. So
loop me into that. Loop me in.
I'll loop Russell into it. The only thing is we can't use any copyrighted clips because YouTube isn't even that strict about that, but some of the other streaming places where we go are very strict about music. Like they'll actually mute the video if we stream copyrighted music on Facebook. They'll mute the entire sound. And then we'll have to do a mime show. So it can't be any copyrighted clips. You can use samples from stock libraries.
Everybody fucking hates a mime.
Right, exactly. You could do samples from stock libraries, but no copyrighted clips, all right? That's one guideline. Rick Bungle said, you guys rock. Well, thank you so much. And we are thankful for all of you guys. We hope you guys have a wonderful, wonderful Thanksgiving. I think we got to sign off now, right, so that we can go have dinner and get ready for our next show.
Yeah, any last questions?
Any final questions?
Before we sign off?
Got ya.
Well, I used the Benny Hill theme the other day.
Yeah, is Benny Hill open source? I'll have to look into that.
I don't know. Well, no, I used it and they haven't flagged us for it.
But that's obviously fair use because it was parody, it was commentary. If we put a theme song up, now we're using it to market ourselves. So a theme song has to be free and clear. You can't have a theme song with copyrighted shit. See? Dissident Law School on here. Yeah, a little online. If you push payment of education loans back 150 years, how will you convince a bank to make another loan? That's a good question. Look, I am for tuition.
It was my understanding there was to be no math on this show.
Well, I'll give you an answer. I'll give you the perfectly fine answer, in my view. I think public colleges should be tuition free, and I think we should undermine, to a great extent, if not abolish outright, private schools. I don't think education should be commodified such that there are such things as prestigious universities. A prestigious university is fucking bullshit. You have curriculum that people need to learn in order to advance themselves. They learn it. They move on with their lives. What's this bullshit about, oh, this school is a great, oh, you went to this school? Oh, you must be extra smart. Fuck you. That's crap. That's crap. That should not exist. So my answer is tuition-free public schools, private schools. If you want to jerk yourself off in that way, pay as you go. Have at it. Right? That's it. That's it. And what that will create the effect of over time, it won't happen right away, unfortunately, but over time, private education will become irrelevant, as it should be.
Right.
As it should be.
Right.
There's no reason for it to exist. There's no reason for it to exist. You can learn fucking, Lord of the Flies at a free school or at an expensive school.
Well,
it's the same fucking book.
It's just class signaling, and I gotta say, because this woke shit has taken hold in those universities more than any place else, and really not even in most of the university system in America. I wanted to do, we never did a segment on it. I think it was Town and Country did an article about how you have these people who are getting accepted to Northeast Ivy League schools who are choosing to go to these Southern Mississippis, Southern universities in Mississippi and Texas and Alabama that kids like that never would have looked at in the past, just to get away from that shit. Who the fuck wants to spend 4 years with the fucking taking a knee? Who wants that shit? That's college, man. They want to do the Animal House thing for that at this point. You got to go south. You can't go to these Northeast universities anymore. You talk to the people coming out of the Ivy League today, these people are dumb as a box of rocks. They are the dumbest, most repulsive, disgusting fucking people you can ever encounter. Horrible, horrible fucking humans that these universities are turning out. So to your point, yes, we need... But it's beyond that. I mean, because this whole project, this whole political philosophy is undermining education. You have Barry Weiss and some other people are involved in trying to set up like an alternative university system, like universities that still believe in reality, objective truth, science, things like that. Because where do you go? Like if I had a child that age right now, I don't know where I would send the fucking kid to school. I wouldn't want them getting indoctrinated with that bullshit. Like I would have to be I think you really have to research what university you're going to send them to.
All right, guys. So what I did was I just posted the YouTube link to tonight's show. We're on Declaring Independence with Jose Vega and Kynan Thistlethwaite. They are more popularly known as the AOC protesters. We are on their program tonight at 8 o'clock. We have to sign back on in 2 hours, so we're going to go have some dinner, and we'll be back on in a couple hours. We hope to see you all again on that stream. Hope you all can tune in. That should be a really fun show. If you can't, we offer our sincere thankfulness to you, our audience, and we hope you have a wonderful Thanksgiving.
Thank you. Have a great Thanksgiving, everybody.
Have a great holiday. We're obviously off Thursday. We'll be back Sunday, though. We're not taking the whole weekend off. We're not taking the whole week. We'll be back Sunday night.
Nicole says the Southern universities can be like that, too, but not as bad.
All right. Good to know.
So we can be thankful for that. And we're thankful for the LaRouchites.
Thankful to that. Brine your turkey, everybody. Brining, very important. Soak it in salt water before you cook it. Remember, basting is wasting, brining is shining. Those are my rules for turkey.
That's his mantra every year.
Yes. Basting is wasting, brining is shining. Brine. Got to brine.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pretty Proletarian. We are thankful to all of you guys. Seriously, thank you guys all very, very much. And we hope to see you again in a couple hours.
John to Emily.
Thank you, John to Emily. Thank you, Extra Bulla. Oh, put exactly. Well, thank you, Extra Bulla.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you. We're going to be on.
Thank you anyway.
Yeah. Thank you to everybody. We hope to see you again in a couple hours. The link is in the chat right there. We're going to tweet it out once again. This chat might disappear once this stream is off for a while, but we'll tweet it out. So follow us on Twitter, and we hope you guys can make it tonight. That should be a fun show.
I'll be wearing my MAGA hat for that one.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm coming out.
Exactly. All right, everybody. If we don't see you later, in all seriousness, thank you so much for your support. Have a wonderful Thanksgiving weekend, and we'll be back here Sunday night, 7 p.m. Peace. Take care of yourselves. Bye-bye.
Please clap.